Hello everyone, Ken here. Today I'm going to mix things up a little bit and walk you through a fun little project that I did. I recently found out that one of my favorite shows actually transcribes all of their podcast episodes, so they have them in text format. This show is the Bigger Pockets podcast, and it focuses primarily on real estate investing. It's very entertaining, and they have some really good life wisdom as well. I think it'd be neat to first scrape this website so that I have all of the text data, and then turn it into a cool visual that shows the words that are most commonly used, so we can get kind of what the theme of the first 159 episodes is, the bigger picture idea. So we're going to go from the text here to a word cloud like this that uses the logo right here as a mask. So if we look here, there's a bunch of links on this page, and each link goes to the transcribed episode. So we're going to go through and we're going to use Python's Beautiful Soup library to first find all the links in this page, next loop through them and get all of the text data, and then eventually, again, turn this into this nice word cloud visual. I encourage you to download the code from GitHub and to follow along. I'm going to walk through my code rather than do it with you this time, but I'm going to make sure to explain all of the steps and all of the parameters, etc. that I use. So without further ado, let's get to it. So here is all of the code you need. It's not very long. We're looking at 112 lines. Usually I would package this separate, so I'd put all the functions in a file and import them differently. Most people would also probably use like an IPython notebook, but for me, again, Spyder is the IDE that I am most comfortable with. So let's get started. Now, the first thing we need to do, if you don't already have it, is to, let's see here, we're going to go to the Anaconda prompt, and we're going to pip install BS4. So that's going to install Beautiful Soup. I obviously already have it. We're also going to pip install word cloud. And if you don't already have it, these will load here. So that's the first initial step that you're going to need to actually have the modules that you need. We're going to be using Beautiful Soup. We're going to be using requests to actually make the requests to the websites for the data. This word cloud module, matplotlib, this PIL, which will help us render the image for the mask. We're also going to use some of these path functions to be able to access the image. NumPy is also used to render the image correctly for our function. And we're going to use this NLTK toolkit, which is a natural language processing toolkit, to clean up some of our text data. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to load all of these. And after we load all of these, we're going to actually get started with pulling the data from the website. So we're going to create this getSoup function, which uses the request library, and we're going to get an HTML. So the first thing that we're going to get is this Bigger Pockets podcast transcript HTML. And that is where all of these are located. So we're just creating the function here so it's more generalizable. We're going to use this same function to get the HTML for the page that has all of the separate links, and also for the individual podcast transcript episodes. So we're going to use responses.encoding, and if character set is in the headers of content type, we're going to convert that into lowercase, or else we're not going to include it. So we're going to have all of these encoded headers, and then we're going to basically go through and make sure that we're getting all of the HTML content. This, you can essentially just copy and paste this logic. This is the same for almost every website you pull. it's important or useful to know how to or what a lot of these things do. But I wouldn't worry about it too much if you don't understand this part. You can just go through, copy this segment, and use it. So we're gonna create an encoding variable, and if it's either a HTML encoding or an HTTP encoding, we're gonna include it. The next thing we're gonna do is use the like beautiful soup object from BS4, and we're gonna get the response, the content of the response, of the request you made, and we're gonna use this type of encoding, which is right here. It's either HTML or HTTP. And then we're gonna return this soup object, which is the object that contains all of the HTML content for the website. After that, so let's actually run that. So we're gonna take this. This is just the path for the website path, and we're gonna get our soup. So, oops, I have to actually initialize this as well. Perfect. So now we have our beautiful soup object, and if we want to view it, we can do, how do we do this? So we do soup punks, and we get all of the HTML, and it looks like a hot mess, but we can use some of the beautiful soup functions to filter through this and get exactly what we want. So this is the web page that we can see right here. It just has all of these links. So what we want to do next is to filter out all of the links and just get those. So I wrote this get links function that takes this beautiful soup object in, and we're gonna first create a list. We could do this in one line if we wanted to, but I think for readability it makes sense to do it like that. So for link in soup, find all. So A, when it has the tag A, it is a link, and it has an href, then it definitely means it's a link. So if it doesn't have this slash, which is just something that I found in the data that made it inconsistent, I filtered that out, and then we just append all of these links to this list that we have right here, and we return that list. So let's run that real quickly, and we can see what that does. So we have hlinks now. If we look at this, we have all of the links from that page, which is pretty nice. And now we can see here that there's some links that we want, so all the ones with episodes like BPP1, BPP2, etc. But we probably don't want the links to their Instagram, their YouTube, Twitter, etc. There's also some links up here that we don't really want. So what I've done, I could use some regex to filter out only ones that have, this BPP here, but I thought it would be more efficient to just choose the links that we wanted. So if we just take, the 6th forward up to 163 of this list, we will get all of the links that are relevant to our search. So let's go in. We have 158, or 159 technically. One for each episode. We don't have anything extraneous here at all. Now, the next thing that we want to do is to get the actual text from any one of the links that we use. So we're going to run this here, and we're also going to want to loop through all of the individual episodes. So this episode list is going to be the same thing as our list of links, and for each link in here, we're going to print it just so we can see that it works, and then we're going to get all of the text from each of the links here, and we're going to return basically a list of all of those. So the first thing that we're going to do down here is to get all of the text from each of these things. Where's get PS? The Oh, oops. So I missed something here. We're gonna first need to get the soup object, the p tags, the paragraph tags, because that's where all the text is in these web pages. So if we go here and we inspect it, we can see that all of the text is within these p tags, and so we just only want to filter those out basically. So this code right here, we just go through the soup object and find all the p tags, and then we include them into a list. Perfect. So right here, we are going to get the list of all the episodes, and this is going to take a while, so I won't put you through the pain of waiting with me through this whole thing. But after this is done, we're going to have a list of all of the text of each of the episodes that we want to evaluate. Okay, we have finished loading, so now we see we have a ton of different text values here. This is just the start of each one, so we're going to see probably a lot of this, but we're going to have, let's see if we can read into it one further. So you can see that the whole episode is in each of these lists. So we're going to mash up all of these individual list elements into one giant text blob. And we're going to use that get text function, which just joins each of the elements of this list together with a space. So this shouldn't take very long. And this is we're gonna create this all text function here. So this might be kind of large. I probably shouldn't have clicked it like that, but let's see if it still runs for me without crashing my computer. Perfect. So you can see there's a lot of words. Now, we're gonna use some filtering from this NLTK toolkit up here. We're gonna remove stop words, and we're also gonna remove all of the punctuation. So we're gonna create another list object. We're gonna create a dictionary of stop words that we want to remove, and we also want to make sure that we're only looking at text. So that's what this is alpha means. And we want to make sure all of this is in lowercase again, just so that for our word cloud, we're not seeing two of the same values, with one is capitalized and one is not. So we can run now this this filtered list. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the get, we're going to remove the punctuation, and this returns another list, and we're going to use get text to make it just a text blob again. So we now have this filtered list, which might take a second to load. Or maybe 2 or 3 seconds. And this is going to give us a giant text blob, but removing all punctuation, all of those like half words, numbers, etc. that we don't want here. After I actually looked at this data, I realized that we don't want to include the names of the people involved. So Brandon and Josh host the show, and that might muddy our insight a little bit. Obviously, it's important to know that they ran the show, but they're going to say each other's names, and their names are going to be mentioned a lot, so we probably want to remove those. Also, a lot of these words that don't particularly mean anything in context were used a lot, so I decided to remove them. So I created this the list of unwanted words, and we just use we use the same list here, and if none of these words are in it, we're going to include it. So we'll create this new text object that just has a lot of useful information for us. All right, so it looks like instead of having a list in filtered list, I put that in the get text function, which I should not have done. So let's rerun this to get the filtered list, and we'll actually get a list with all of the values rather than one giant text block. That way, if you can see here, we have each individual letter has a space between it. That is not what we want. We'll be able to fix that now when we actually run this text. So now text, you can see it has normal lettering, which is exactly what we want. So getting onto the fun part, we can actually start building out this word cloud. This D variable that we see here just has the path to the working directory, which in my computer is YouTube BiggerPockets. As you can see, there's the logo, etc. there. And what we can do is now read in this picture file that I have in that working directory. So let's see if I can find it real quickly, what it actually looks like. So BiggerPockets 4, perfect. So this is the logo that we're going to use as the mask, and that means that the word cloud is going to be shaped exactly like that logo. Now, one thing I realized is that the mask only works if there's perfect white space in the background. So for a lot of the pictures and images that I found, they did not. It was like a little bit gray, so the image didn't turn out, so the word cloud didn't turn out great. I did a little bit of editing in Photoshop just to make sure that this area and the surrounding was actually pure white, so the mask would work. So what we do here is from this path, we read in this file, and we use this image open from the PIL module up here to access that. We then turn that into a NumPy array, which gives it the, which turns it into the hexadecimal for each pixel. That way we can read it in as a mask here. So we're going to run it without the mask first, just to show you what it looks like, and then I'll run it with the mask to again show you how that improves upon what we did. So we create a word cloud object, and we initiate it with a background color, the max number of words we want, the max font size, and a random state. I suggest using a random state so you get the same image every time. There is some randomness in how the words are displayed and organized. So if you want to repeat the process, use a random state. Word cloud also has a stop words list, so we can actually include more words that are kind of general language that we want to remove from our text. So let's initiate this object, and then now we're gonna generate this this text object. We're gonna ignore the image color generator right now because of the we're not using the mask, and we just have to use some of the matplotlib functions to actually run this. So we want the figure to be 10 by 10. We want the image, well, let's just remove that because we're not going to recolor it yet. We want the image to show word cloud. And we're going to turn off the axes, and we're going to just show it again. So perfect. So this is what our initial word cloud looks like. Not overwhelmingly pretty, it's just this giant blob, etc. If we want to make it look like the picture that I had displayed before, we're going to add in the mask here. So we just do mask is equal to mask logo. And so if we run this again, might take a little while, but we should get this in the shape of the actual logo that we had designed, that we'd seen before. So as you can see, it is now in the BiggerPockets logo shape. The last thing we want to do is to actually uncomment this, and we would recolor it to use the image colors that we got from this image color generator. And this interpolation, we use bilinear, which is kind of, it makes it into a gradient. You can, if you don't use that, it'll just look a little bit more pixelated. There's plenty of options, and you can experiment with the source code there if you'd like. So now let's try and run this whole thing and see how it turns out. Again, a word cloud I think is something that is fun, it's visual, and it can also tell you a lot of really cool information. You know, this podcast, again, is about real estate, and you can see real estate in very large letters there. There are themes of people and property, investing. You see a lot of very interesting things in here that really speak to a lot of the characteristics of the show. If we were to go through and make maybe one improvement on this, we try to probably bucket words together or focus on, you know, specific names or themes. You know, they talk about Grant Cardone a lot. They talk about you know, types of properties, etc. And focusing on one of those areas could be a way to improve a diagram like this. If you'd like to save this, you can right-click it, save image as, and just save it to this local file. We'll call this new BP logo. And now we can open it, and we have our new file. So that's about it for this project. Hopefully it was fun and interesting to you all. You can definitely replicate it perhaps on some similar use cases. This was a very straightforward web scrape, which I like. And again, this word cloud is a really fun way to, you know, showcase your company or to tell a fun story with data. Again, thank you so much for watching, and good luck on your data science journey.